My dad basically forced me to go to my so-called golden brother's wedding, threatening to pull the plug on my tuition if I didn't. But their faces were priceless when I told them I was actually making more money than him. See, growing up, I was always the one they pushed to the sidelines, the forgotten kid in the background. Dad had this weird obsession with my brother, like Caleb could do no wrong. I still remember his words, clear as day. I don't care if you got into some big-name university. You're going to the local college so your brother doesn't feel like he's falling behind. So what did I do? I played along. I told him, sure thing, Dad. I'll go to that college, but only if I can live in the dorms. He bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. Meanwhile, I packed my bags and headed off to that prestigious college on a scholarship he didn't even know I had. Now, when he eventually finds out, he's going to lose it. But let me ask you something. What would you do if the same people who ignored your existence for years suddenly expected you to show up, smile, and play the role of the perfect family member for just one day? It's tough, right? But that's been the story of my life, especially with this family. Let me rewind a bit. I'm Eli, and if it's not obvious already, my family's got problems. Serious ones. Actually, calling them a family might be giving them too much credit. I mean, what do you call the people who brought you into this world, only to toss you aside the second they found a shinier version of you? Because that's exactly what happened. And instead of dancing around the issue, I'll just lay it out plain. I might have had a decent childhood if my parents had treated me and my brother equally. But no, my parents, Douglas and Elaine, played favorites from day one, and guess who got the short end of the stick? That's right, me. All because Caleb was the picture-perfect baby, healthy, cute, always smiling, while I was the skinny, awkward little kid nobody really noticed. But should that have mattered so much that they ended up raising us like we were from two different worlds? You'd think not. But my parents, they didn't see it that way. By the time Caleb was a month old, he was already their pride and joy. Everyone adored him. He wasn't particularly gifted or anything, just better looking, more presentable. He played the lead while I was cast as the forgettable background extra. You can probably imagine what growing up like that felt like. They never went out of their way for me. They made sure I had food, clothes, and a roof, sure, but anything beyond the bare minimum? Forget it. Caleb, on the other hand, soaked up all the love and attention. He turned into this arrogant, self-centered kid who thought the world revolved around him. And sadly, it kind of did. He and I couldn't have been more different. I was the quiet, introverted one. Caleb? A loudmouth bully who got a kick out of making my life miserable. Yeah, imagine being pushed around by your younger brother. That was my reality. He'd ruin my plans with tantrums, steal the stuff I cared about, and do everything he could to make sure I was miserable. And when you mix all that with parents who let it happen, who actually encouraged it, you get an upbringing that feels more like a punishment than a childhood. Caleb had new toys every week, compliments every day. Me? I was lucky if anyone even remembered my birthday. There's one moment I'll never forget. 3rd grade. I worked my butt off and got straight A's on my report card. I was so proud. Thought maybe I'd finally get a little recognition. I handed it to my mom with a big smile, and all she said was, "That's nice," before turning around to gush about Caleb's crooked little drawing of a dog. She even pinned it to the fridge like it was some masterpiece. My report card? Shoved in a drawer, probably still there, buried under junk. That's how it always was. Caleb got the spotlight. I got the shadows. And it wasn't just schoolwork or fridge space. He called the shots on family vacations, decided what we ate, picked the TV shows. Anytime I tried to have a say, it was a hard no. And Caleb loved rubbing it in. He acted like he ruled the house and I was just lucky to be there. You think I didn't want to get out of that place the second I had a chance? That chance came when I started thinking about college. I got accepted into one of the most prestigious universities out there, on a full scholarship, no less. It was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. The kind of school that opens doors you didn't even know existed. But it was far away. Different state. Different world. And just like everything else in my life, my parents found a way to ruin it. They didn't want me to go. Surprise, surprise, the reason was Caleb. They came up with some garbage excuse about how the local college had better opportunities, and how it'd be unfair to Caleb if I left and succeeded while he stayed behind. Unfair to Caleb? Really? If he wanted something that badly, he could have worked for it. Like I did. But that logic didn't matter to my parents. They made it clear I was staying local. No discussion. The whole thing was ridiculous. Somewhere deep down, I started to believe they were just afraid I'd outshine him. That if I actually succeeded, it'd mess with the little fantasy they built around Caleb being the golden child. Supporting me, encouraging me, that would have shattered the illusion. Why else would they bend over backwards to hold me back, while Caleb, who barely lifted a finger, got all the praise and freedom in the world? But I didn't give in. I'd already wasted enough time trying to please them, trying to be the good son in a house where that title was already taken. So I struck a deal. I told them I'd go to the local college, but only if I could live in the dorms. They jumped at it. Thought they'd won. Thought I was finally doing what they wanted. But here's the truth. I took that scholarship, packed my bags, and left. Moved to a whole new state, started a new chapter, and never looked back. They still think I'm down the road at the local college. The best part about getting into that top-tier college? It offered the exact finance program I wanted, and I could finish it in just 2 years. Meanwhile, the local school my parents pushed was a 4-year drag. That shorter timeline was a huge bonus. It meant I'd graduate way sooner than they ever expected. Looking back, it might have been the smartest move I've ever made. Not only did I escape the mess my parents called home, but I also stepped into a world full of opportunity. That place wasn't just a school, it was a gateway to success. I'm saying this because, not long after I graduated, I landed a 6-figure job offer. I've been with the company for about a year now, and things are looking up. There's even talk of a promotion on the horizon. And you know what? I made it happen. The scholarship covered about 70% of my tuition, and I used the money my dad sent, thinking it was for a local college, to handle the rest. Yeah? Life's good. To this day, my father still wires me money, fully convinced I'm attending the nearby school. And I haven't corrected him. I get it, it might seem shady. But honestly, after the way they treated me for years, I consider it payback. I've kept contact with my family to a bare minimum. A few check-in calls, 1 or 2 appearances around the holidays, just enough to keep up the illusion. Other than that, I've kept my distance and blamed it on my hectic study schedule. Not that they ever really noticed. Or cared. They already had Caleb, their perfect child. With me out of sight, their lives probably got easier. Fewer responsibilities, fewer complaints. And strangely enough, I was okay with that arrangement. Sure, it stung a little to realize they didn't even notice I had packed up and moved states away. But the peace that came from not having them around far outweighed that pain. Truth is, I did miss the idea of family. Not the one I actually had, but the version where people love you and look out for you. Even though I was surrounded by new friends and exciting experiences, there was still this quiet emptiness. But up until this morning, I didn't think anything could really be done about it. Today, I got a call from my dad. Out of nowhere. He said Caleb was getting married and they needed me to come a few days early to help with the preparations. I just froze. Was my father seriously asking me to come back? I dreamed of a moment like this for a long time, some sign that maybe, just maybe, they saw me as part of the family. And then he actually said it. That he wanted everyone there for Caleb's big day, including me. I'll admit it hit me hard. I got choked up for a second. Because not once in my life had they ever truly acknowledged me like that. It was the first time my dad had said anything remotely inclusive. For a second, I felt seen. But that moment passed fast. Because I remembered exactly who I was dealing with. These were the same people who hadn't noticed I'd been gone for years. The same people who had let me grow up in the shadows of their golden child. Did I really want to go back just to be ignored all over again? And that's the choice I found myself staring at. So let me ask you, what would you do in my shoes? I wanted to believe they finally cared. That maybe things were changing. But I was terrified of walking back into that house only to be disappointed all over again. Again. Was it worth showing up for the sake of family? Or was I better off staying away and protecting the peace I'd finally built for myself? I had a couple of days to think it through. And after a lot of soul-searching, I made my decision. Some of you might not agree with it, but I chose not to go to Caleb's wedding. And honestly, it feels like the right call. Probably the best one I've made in a long time. Spoiler alert, my parents haven't changed. They never will. Let me pick up from where I left off. After thinking it over, I sent my dad a short text. Just said I wouldn't be able to make it. No long explanations. No fake excuses. Because the truth? I had no intention of going. I expected some kind of reaction. But I didn't think the guilt games would start so fast. Within an hour, my phone lit up with messages. First came my mom, laying it on thick. She asked if I really wanted to miss Caleb's special day. Wondered if I wanted to be that brother. Claimed Caleb would be crushed if I didn't show. She even threw in that classic line, "You only get one family." Oh, and she tried to tug on my heartstrings, saying it would mean the world to Caleb if I was there. Really? Funny how none of my big moments ever meant a thing to him. Not one. And yes, you only get one family, but only if they act like one. So I told her flat out I'm not coming. When the guilt trip failed, my dad tried a different tactic. At first, he kept it polite. Tried the whole family sticks together angle. When I didn't budge, he turned nasty. Called me and said that if I didn't show up to Caleb's wedding, he'd stop paying my college expenses. His exact words? "We can't have people talking about how one of our sons didn't show. It wouldn't look right." There it was. The real reason. It wasn't about me. Or even Caleb. It was about image. Reputation. What the neighbors would think. As always, appearances meant more than people. That's when I snapped. Seriously, who does that? Threatens to pull financial support just to force someone to attend a wedding? It was pathetic. Especially since I didn't care about the money at all. So I told him, go ahead. Stop sending money. I'm not coming. You can threaten me all you want, it won't change a thing. He still doesn't know I graduated a year ago. Or that I'm living in another state making more than he ever dreamed of. I've kept it all to myself because I know the second they find out they'll try to poison everything I've worked so hard to build. I'll tell them the truth eventually. I will. But for now, I'm enjoying the peace. My refusal to show up for the wedding sent my dad into a tailspin. He went off, saying I was ungrateful, always difficult, and that he'd have my name removed from the local college's system to teach me a lesson. He said it like it was supposed to scare me. Like pulling me out of a school I never even attended would somehow break me. The irony of it all? My dad had no idea how far off he was from the truth. Honestly, I couldn't stop laughing. Sure, I could have come clean and told him I never even set foot in that local college. But where's the fun in that, right? So now I'm just sitting back, waiting for him to march into that school and try to yank my enrollment records that don't even exist. I'm genuinely looking forward to the moment he realizes I've been doing just fine without him, without a single cent of his help. That realization? It's going to hit hard. And you can bet it won't be long before he's blowing up my phone again, probably yelling obscenities like I just insulted his ancestors. I honestly can't wait. Anyway, I'll keep you all updated as things unfold. So, hey again, it's Eli. I know it's only been a day since I last shared anything, but the chaos in my life just keeps getting better. After my last message, I had this gut feeling my dad wouldn't take my refusal to go to Caleb's wedding lightly. And yeah, turns out I was absolutely right. This morning, my phone rang, and it was him. And let me tell you, he was fuming. Wasting no time, he demanded to know where I'd been, what I'd done with all the money he'd so generously given me for school. It was like watching a toddler throw a fit after dropping his ice cream cone. Only this time, it was my father going full meltdown mode. Apparently, after our last conversation, the man actually drove down to the local college. And here's where it gets hilarious. He went there fully prepared to remove my name from their system as some kind of punishment. Like, he truly believed that pulling me out of college would make me cave and run to Caleb's wedding. But instead of looking like some powerful patriarch, he just embarrassed himself. Because, surprise, surprise, the college had no clue who I was. No record. No file. Nothing. I can only imagine the look on his face. He walked in there, all puffed up and ready to make a scene, only to find out his son had never been enrolled. I bet it knocked the wind out of him. During our call, I could hear the bitterness in his voice. He was humiliated, and it showed. He wanted answers, demanded to know where I had been the past few months and what I'd done with all that money. But honestly, the whole situation was so ridiculous I couldn't help but laugh again. Eventually, after letting him stew for a bit, I told him the truth. I let him know I'd graduated a year ago on a scholarship and that the money he'd been sending actually helped cover my living expenses. Then I dropped the real bomb. I told him I now had a 6-figure salary and was earning more than he ever had. When he asked if I was joking, I could hear the disappointment creeping in. But deep down, I think he knew I wasn't bluffing. That realization? It crushed him. The image he had of me, a struggling, dependent student, was gone. I was out here living a life he never imagined for me. And I was fully prepared for what came next. As soon as the truth sank in, my father exploded. He accused me of betrayal, of keeping secrets, of disrespecting everything he had done for me. Everything he'd done for me? You mean ignoring me for years while coddling Caleb like some royal heir? And then get this, he had the nerve to say the only way he'd forgive me was if I showed up to Caleb's wedding. Said it was the only way to avoid scandal and keep the family name intact. I couldn't believe it. The man still cared more about what the neighbors thought than about his own kids. I don't know where this sudden obsession with family image came from. It definitely wasn't around when I was being shoved to the side my entire life. So I told him straight I didn't need his forgiveness, and I sure as hell wasn't going to play dress up and pretend we were some perfect, loving family. He kept pushing. You could hear the desperation now. Told me I needed to be there. Tried to sweet-talk me into it. But I held firm. I told him there was absolutely no way I'd ever attend the wedding of the guy who wrecked my entire childhood. None. And then I said something I probably should have said a long time ago. I told him I was done. That I was cutting them off. He was stunned. I don't think he expected me to go that far. But I wasn't finished. Not this time. I told him I'd had enough silence, enough being the forgotten one, enough pretending. I told him not to contact me again, that they could go celebrate their precious golden child without me while I moved on with my life. He tried one last time to pull the emotional card, saying, "You're still my son." But I'd reached my limit. I told him, "You only have one son. The one you always cared about. Keep it that way." And then, before he could say another word, I ended the call and blocked his number. That was it. That was the moment I officially cut ties with the people who had hurt me the most. It's a strange mix of emotions, part sadness, part relief. I never thought it would come to this. But deep down, I know it had to happen. For the first time, I can finally breathe. I can finally live. And who knows? Maybe someday I'll build a real family of my own. One that actually means something. It's been a little over a month since I shut them out. I figured the drama was behind me, that maybe they'd just move on and let me go. But clearly, they weren't done. A few days ago, I got a call from an unknown number. I hesitated, but something made me pick up. It was my mom, and she was crying. Hard. I'd blocked all their numbers, so I was surprised the call even got through. Still, I didn't hang up. I thought maybe something terrible had happened. But nope. Nothing like that. She started going on about how much she missed me. How none of the past stuff mattered anymore. How all she wanted was her son back. She said she didn't care what I'd said or what Dad had done. She just wanted things to go back to the way they were. And I just sat there thinking, where was this energy before? When I told them I was cutting ties, they didn't lift a finger. And now suddenly she wants to patch things up? It all felt off. So I told her I'd call back later and hung up. But something didn't sit right. I had a hunch, so I called my aunt, my mom's sister, and asked if she'd heard anything. What she told me? Absolutely wild. Apparently, Caleb's picture-perfect wedding turned into a disaster. A total mess. His lovely fiancée? Turns out she was a full-blown con artist. And just before the wedding, she convinced Caleb, my parents, and a few other relatives to dump all their savings into some sketchy, once-in-a-lifetime investment scheme. And yep, you guessed it, it was all one big scam. She took the money and vanished. No wedding. No vows. Just empty chairs and drained bank accounts. She disappeared into thin air and took every last dollar with her. My parents? Broke. But that wasn't even the worst of it. My aunt filled me in on something even more serious. Turns out, my dad got into some kind of blowout with an employee, some family drama at work, which led to a major loss for his already struggling business. And right then, everything made sense. That's why he was suddenly so eager for me to come to the wedding. It wasn't about family. It wasn't about love. It was about image. He wanted to show off his perfect family to cover up the cracks. But that blew up in his face too. The whole mess with Caleb's fiancée just added fuel to the fire, and now the entire town's buzzing about it. Money's bleeding out from every corner of their lives. To make matters worse, they put their house up as collateral to take out a loan and save the business. That plan? Total failure. Now they're facing foreclosure. They've been forced to move into some rundown trailer, or maybe it's a shoebox apartment, I'm not really sure. Either way, they've hit rock bottom. That's when it finally clicked for me. My mom's tearful call? It wasn't because she missed me. It wasn't about love or regret. It was desperation. They were drowning, and they realized the one person they'd ignored for years was now their only shot at staying afloat. They didn't want me back, they wanted what I had. But I wasn't falling for it. I've seen the full picture now. I've seen how quick they are to throw someone away when it's convenient. They spent my entire childhood worshipping Caleb and acting like I didn't exist. And now that their golden boys made a mess of everything, I'm suddenly important again? Give me a break. And here's the real kicker, now they're turning on Caleb. Yep, blaming him for everything. The failed wedding, the empty accounts, the lost house, all of it. The same kid they once called perfect is now the scapegoat. Honestly, it made me laugh. It was poetic in a way. The golden child they built their entire world around is the one who burned it to the ground. And me? I stayed out of it. I didn't answer any more calls. After my mom's little sob story, I blocked her again. I wasn't about to let her mess with my peace. But of course that didn't stop them. Not even close. They just couldn't accept that their manipulation wasn't working anymore. So what did they do? They showed up. At my house. Don't ask me how they found me. I'm guessing they harassed some old friends until someone gave in. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that they were standing on my porch, talking about family values and you're our son. So now it's your responsibility to help. I shut the door in their faces. They pleaded, saying they had no money left, that they'd spent everything they had on plane tickets just to come beg me in person. That sucks, sure. But it wasn't going to change a thing. I wasn't about to throw away my peace to bail out people who never gave a damn about me. But it didn't stop there either. A few days later, Caleb himself showed up. No lie, he was practically in tears. Said he missed having his big brother around. Said he needed me. That mom and dad were cutting him off, blaming him for everything. And all I could think was, what big brother? Because I sure don't remember being treated like one. I remember him mocking me, stealing my things, making my life miserable every chance he got. I warned him to leave, but he kept begging. Said he had nowhere else to turn. I didn't care. I slammed the door and told him if any of them showed up again, I'd call the police. And that was that. I haven't heard from any of them since. And honestly, I hope it stays that way. I'm done. Really done. There's a small ache in me, sure. A part that mourns the idea of what family could have been. That hollow spot they carved out. It'll always be there. But I'm not going to fill it with pain just because they share my last name. Sometimes walking away is the healthiest thing you can do. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Free. Finally free from all of it. Thanks for listening. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more unbelievable, real-life stories that prove truth really is stranger than fiction.